Do you want to know why Facebook sheds 11,000 jobs? Do you want to know why Facebook blocked news content in Canada? Then stay tuned and watch this video till the end. Facebook parent company Meta announced extensive layoffs on Wednesday, shedding 11,000 jobs, or about 13% of its staff, amid an industry-wide slowdown that has rattled Silicon Valley in recent months. The cuts represent the first sweeping workforce reduction the company has undertaken since it was founded in 2004, and the latest sign that once invincible tech behemoths are in a moment of reckoning. Calling the layoffs some of the most difficult changes we've made in Meta's history, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the company overhired during the pandemic, assuming the ultra-rapid growth would keep going. Not only has online commerce returned to prior trends, but the macroeconomic downturn, increased competition, and ad signal loss have caused our revenue to be much lower than I'd expected, Zuckerberg wrote in a message to employees. I got this wrong, and I take responsibility for that. Meta, which has around 87,000 employees, has recently undergone belt-tightening measures like hiring freezes and eliminating non-essential travel. In his note to employees, Zuckerberg said Meta's hiring freeze will continue, as well as scaling back its real estate, among other cost-cutting changes to be announced in the coming months. The dramatic shakeup arrives as the company experiences major change on two fronts. First, the company has made a multi-billion-dollar investment in the so-called metaverse, a utopian online future in which people live, work, and play in virtual reality. It is, so far, an unproven but costly pivot away from the business of social media. Secondly, the uncertain economy has made jittery advertisers slash spending. The pullback has walloped Meta, since nearly all of its revenue comes from ads. It also has been bruising to ad-dependent services like Snap and YouTube. According to Zuckerberg, the 11,000 employees who will lose their jobs at Meta will get 16 weeks of severance pay and health insurance for 6 months. Laid-off holders of visas will be provided resources to assist with changes in immigration status, he said. Meta Platforms has warned Canada it is prepared to block the sharing of Canadian news content like it did in Australia last year unless the Liberal government amends legislation that would compel big digital companies to compensate domestic media outlets. The legislation is under review by a parliamentary committee, and lawmakers voted this week to stop hearing further testimony from witnesses. Facebook said it wasn't given an opportunity to testify, so late Friday it issued a statement outlining the company's concerns with Canada's proposed rules and a warning. Faced with adverse legislation that is based on false assumptions that defy the logic of how Facebook works, we feel it is important to be transparent about the possibility that we may be forced to consider whether we continue to allow the sharing of news content in Canada, said Mark Dinsdale, head of media partnerships at Meta's Canadian unit. Canada's Minister for Cultural Policy, Pablo Rodriguez, said in a statement officials held talks with Facebook as recently as last week, yet they continue to pull from their playbook used in Australia. He added, all we're asking the tech giants like Facebook to do is negotiate fair deals with news outlets when they profit from their work. In testimony before lawmakers Friday, Mr. Rodriguez said the survival of the Canadian news business was at stake without the bill. Facebook's notice to Canada could trigger the type of high-stakes battle that unfolded last year in Australia over the same issue of compensation for media outlets. Facebook's move in Australia to block news on its platform ended after a 5-day period, with the company and government striking a deal in which officials agreed to ease regulations that effectively required payment in exchange for the social media company restoring content. Facebook's tactics drew criticism from lawmakers around the world. According to Australian authorities, as well as Facebook documents and testimony filed to the US, the social media company also took down pages belonging to Australian hospitals, emergency services, and charities while blocking news content. Facebook representatives said this was inadvertent and due to a technical error. Rachel Curran, Meta's public policy director in Canada, said Saturday Meta told government officials about the warning before its publication on a company blog. She said blocking news content is really not our preferred outcome, and we're not issuing this as a threat. We don't want to be in a position where we're having to think about or talk about removing news from the platform. Earlier this year, Citing the Australia model, Canada introduced legislation that would require digital platforms to make fair commercial deals with news publishers, which incorporates print, digital, and broadcasting outlets. Should negotiations fail to come to an agreement, the legislation envisages the two sides entering binding arbitration to determine appropriate compensation. Canada's parliamentary budget watchdog estimates the legislation could generate revenue of about $240 million a year for media outlets, with broadcasters in line for 3/4 of the amount. Meta said the Canadian law presumes the company unfairly benefits from its relationship with publishers, when in fact the reverse is true. Meta said Canadian news publishers choose to share links and other content from their websites on Facebook to reach a wider audience, and it estimates that results in free marketing worth nearly $170 million a year. The company said the legislation would require Meta to acquiesce to a system that lets publishers charge us for as much content as they want to supply at a price with no clear limits. No business can operate this way. News Corp, owner of the Wall Street Journal, has a commercial agreement to supply news through Facebook. Meta has told publishers in the US that it won't renew contracts to feature their content in its Facebook News tab. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you like the content. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you wanted to watch more such informative videos, and don't forget to hit the bell icon.